So this is my Sony A7S II cinema rig. I've been working on this rig and therefore this video for over 2.5 years, ever since I first purchased my Sony A7S II. It's undergone several different modifications and alterations where I've been trying to get it to suit my needs as best as possible. And I've got it down to 2 different configurations. The first configuration is a neat, compact, handheld run and gun rig. And then the second is the full-on monster cinema rig. Best part about both of these rigs is that they're super affordable and budget friendly. So let's cut the chat and get straight in. Now, the 2 rig configurations have a lot of similarities and overlap, so let's start with what's the same about the 2 rigs, and then we'll talk about how they differ. Now, to have really any success in building out a camera rig, you need to start with a cage. The cage I went with is from Smallrig. It's one built specifically for the A7S II, but there are so many different variations that Smallrig has to offer, so no matter what camera you use, you'll no doubt find something that works from their huge collection of cages. One pro tip that I learned from someone, and I can't actually remember who that person was, but this cage and a number of others that you'll no doubt come across only have one mounting screw that connects the cage to the bottom of the camera. And this can actually result in a little bit of side-to-side wiggle if and when that screw gets loose. So a neat tip is to grab some of these cheap twisty ties and tie them through one of the threads on the cage and then to the neck strap mounting points on the camera. And this will add a really nice layer of stability and help to reduce some of that side-to-side wiggle. On top of that, we have a pretty generic style top handle, which I use all the time to carry my rig around. And this one is also from Smallrig. And again, there are so many different options and styles available from their huge range of top handles. But for me, I would personally recommend avoiding any top handles that are mounted via the hot shoe, as that can often result in a little bit of wiggle. Instead, I would recommend looking for top handles that are mounted via 1/4 inch screws, as that will provide you with the most stability and reliability. So then from there, on the side here, I have this wooden side handle that I actually nabbed off a generic Camvate DSLR cage that I bought for a previous camera a number of years ago now, and it just mounts to the side of the cage using 2 1/4 inch screws. Now, I'm a big enthusiast of handheld footage, and so having this wooden side handle helps to remove at least my left hand a little bit away from the body of the camera, and this helps to reduce those micro jitters that can otherwise show up in handheld footage if you've got your hands directly on the body of the camera. Now, directly underneath the camera, I've got this nice long Arca Swiss quick release plate that I've connected using 2 1/4 inch screws into the bottom of the cage. And using 2 screws makes things rock solid. There's no wiggle at all, which is what you want in a rig. All of my equipment uses the Arca Swiss system, which makes it really easy to swap between different pieces of camera support gear. Now from there, I mount the camera onto a universal low profile 15mm rod base plate, which itself has been attached to an Arca Swiss clamp, meaning it's really easy to take the camera on and off. But I use this 15mm rod base plate to attach a few other accessories, the most important of which is external power. For most camera rigs, you're gonna wanna use some form of external power to really beef up the battery life of your camera and transform it into more of a video shooting beast. And for me, it's actually pretty much the main reason why I even have a rig in the first place. Now, whilst V-mount batteries can be a good long-term solution, they're not always the best option for 2 main reasons: cost and size. So I went with pretty much the most budget-friendly option you can go for, which is one of these external Sony NPF battery plates that powers the camera through a dummy battery adapter. I've got the battery plate mounted on one of these 15mm Rod Adapters, and then that goes at the back of the rig. Now, using one of these beefy Sony MP batteries will last me over 4 hours of shooting 4K internally on my Sony A7S II, and they're dirt cheap as well. And so whilst your rig might look fractionally cooler with a V-mount solution, your wallet will definitely thank you if you go the Sony MP route instead. So the last piece of the puzzle that stays the same for both rigs is this brand new 5-inch monitor that I just recently received from Andycine. Now, this is their A6 Plus model, and full disclosure, they did send it to me in exchange for featuring it in a video on my channel, but they didn't pay me a cent to say anything in particular. And in fact, I actually reached out to them to ask if I could try it out because I'd seen so many other great reviews of it across YouTube. Now, I've tried several different so-called budget-friendly monitors in my time, and without a doubt, the A6 Plus is the best bang for your buck 5-inch monitor that you can find. And for me, 5 inches is the perfect size for a compact handheld rig like this. That said, the real highlight of this monitor is that it is a touchscreen, which for me is such a game-changing feature for an on-field camera monitor to have, because it makes navigating through the menus and switching on and off the various camera assist features an absolute breeze. It's also got a super sharp 1920 by 1080 resolution, which for 5 inches is just about as sharp as you can get. It gets decently bright for outdoor viewing, but also comes with a sun hood for improved visibility, and it supports 4K 30 signals natively, which means your camera doesn't have to do the converting on its end. It also comes with this really neat articulating mounting bracket, which I've taken the liberty to mount on the front of my top handle or on the back, depending on which way I've got it mounted. But this gives the monitor this super low profile setup, which I'm all about. And if the bracket isn't your thing, then the monitor also has 3 1/4-inch mounting points, which makes attaching it to any camera rig super versatile and flexible. It's also got a whole host of inbuilt camera assist features as well, including histograms, focus assist, audio meters, zebras, false color, ratio guidelines, pixel to pixel, and 3D LUT support. So just about all you could hope for. And you can even pinch to zoom in digitally, which comes in super clutch for nailing focus and is a phenomenal feature to have. It's also got a really great operating system, which is outrageously easy to use with customizable shortcuts just to swipe away. It's got HDMI out as well, a headphone jack for monitoring audio, and get this, it also has a DC 8-volt output, which means you can actually power your camera from the battery on the monitor if you have a dummy battery adapter for your camera of choice. It is a seriously great monitor that is packed to the brim with features, and if you want to learn more about it, then I recommend checking out Caleb Pike's review of it over on his channel, which I will link down in the description below. But I can highly recommend it myself, particularly if you're looking for a 5-inch monitor that doesn't break the bank. Now, with that out of the way, we've got our compact handheld rig complete. And to be honest, this is the configuration that I tend to find myself using more often than not. It's convenient, it's not too heavy, and everything I need is pretty easily accessible. But there are some situations that call for a more beastly rig. And so let's talk about how I transform this cute little compact handheld rig into a full-on monster cinema rig. Firstly, I swapped the top handle configuration all the way around so that the handle now faces forwards and the monitor is at the back. And this will make more sense as to why I do this in a moment. Then I swap out these cute little 15mm rods for these longer ones. And then what really beefs up this rig tenfold is this matte box from Fotka. It's called the DP3000, and whilst it's not the cheapest matte box that you can find, I think it's the cheapest that will actually enhance your workflow and your setup and not just make your rig look super cool. It has dual filter trays, one of which is rotating, and it's also a swing away matte box, which makes it a heck of a lot easier to swap out lenses on the go. I also took the liberty to spray paint the various screws and bolts on this matte box black, as I feel as though the original bright blue color is a little obnoxious and amateur looking. But then the final piece to this beastly rig is I take one of those little 15mm rods, I attach it to the side of the matte box, and then use that to attach an additional side handle, which again makes handheld shooting so nice because it gets my hands as far away from the camera body as possible. And as you can now see, having the monitor on the back of the rig means that I can keep it nice and low profile, which isn't possible if it's facing forward, given that the matte box gets in the way, and it also counterbalances the weight of that matte box quite nicely. Now keep in mind, with this fully kitted out cinema rig, things do get pretty heavy, which I actually don't mind given the look that it adds to handheld footage, but for long extended shoots, I have found that it can become quite taxing. So that's why I tend to find myself going back to that smaller handheld rig for my run and gun shoots. But that's it. Those are my 2 camera rigs in all of their glory. Now, every single part that I mentioned throughout the video has been linked down in the description below. And if you have any questions regarding parts or regarding the rig itself, then hit me up in the comments down below and I'll do my best to get back to you with a response. Aside from that, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will catch you later.